Hello, folks. Welcome to Business Spotlight. My guest today is one of life's serial achievers. In the early part of his corporate career, he was central to one of the biggest brand reinventions in the automotive industry in the last 30 years. He then entered the world of entrepreneurship and took a startup from 20 to over 750 people when he left. He had a big life-changing moment in his career, and he's now started a new enterprise, and I can't wait to have him tell you all about that. My guest today is the absolutely fantastic Peter Brookes-Smith. Peter, it's brilliant to see you again. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for that introduction. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to having our chat today.
Oh, brilliant. Peter, look, we've known each other for a long time now, and your journey has been quite an extraordinary one. You really are one of life's serial achievers. You've got a new business. Why don't you tell the story a little bit behind, the successes that you had previously and what this new business is all about?
So, as you mentioned, we worked together 30 odd years ago, and we had a great time, transforming, really a massive automotive icon, and it was really great fun, and we all learned loads. Then when I finished that, I thought I just want to do something a bit different, and I decided to go into a smaller business. And one of my friends invited me to join a company, and they had about 25 people on when I joined, and I just applied the things that I believe and the things that I found were successful, and we grew and grew to, as you said, over 750 people when I left. That was really great fun, an award-winning business. And then I had something happened, and I decided I would need to do something a bit different. And I wanted to create a smaller organization again, and do something about giving back and helping people to learn more about technology. And I've always felt that more people could be involved in technology careers than do. So I created DT Squad and started helping people learn to solve hard problems with code. And that's what I've been doing now for the last couple of years.
I can't wait to tell that story all about DT Squad, Peter. Look, you have had a phenomenally successful journey, but I'm sure and I know it's not all been straightforward, right? What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced, and how have you overcome them?
So I would say about 7 years ago, I would describe myself at the top of my game, and all the years of experience that I had been accumulating somehow were coming into play with running the business that I was running at the time. And it was in February I got a bout of flu. It was man flu, so of course it was completely debilitating, and it lasted about 2 weeks. But when I started to feel the flu symptoms depart, I was left with a very strange feeling, and I described it then as being like 2 or 3 pints drunk, and sometimes not quite as bad and sometimes a bit more. And I just wasn't able to think straight. I couldn't sort of rely on myself to be making the right decisions. Nobody really knew what it was. I thought I was just going to get better. I just kept waiting to get better. And after about 6 or 8 weeks, I thought this is going to take a bit longer than I was expecting. I stepped back from my business because you can't be running a large organization with a condition like that, or I felt I couldn't. I didn't want to put other people in that position. Eventually, it was diagnosed as post-viral trauma. I still have the condition today, but as long as I avoid the things that make it worse, then mostly I can do the things that I want to do, and I can keep the symptoms under control. But that was a really, really big change, pulled the rug out from under my feet, and just didn't know what the rest of my life would be having in store for me.
An extraordinary story. Literally, you had two incredible rounds of success there, your corporate career, and then taking that second enterprise to 750 people, and then all of a sudden, as you said, the rug was pulled from under your feet. But you've picked yourself up again, and you've started a new business, and it's going incredibly well. What strategies are you employing to build a really strong customer base now and establish a new brand in what is a very competitive industry?
The things that really matter in business is looking after your people, looking after the people who work for you and your partners and your suppliers and the people who are helping you to create whatever it is you're creating. This is really a critical thing. If you haven't got that, you have nothing. And the second thing is having customers who you can add value to, who appreciate you for the value that you do add and trust and rely on you. And that trust only comes by actually delivering, actually doing the things that you say. So I would say, the strategies that I deploy is to, run my business according to a set of principles or values that I personally hold very dear, and sticking to those come hell or high water. And, when the sun's shining and when it's a February winter day, still sticking to those things and holding true to them.
And you really do walk the talk on that. I know that you did it in the other big enterprise when it came to developing people, and you're very much doing it now with DT Squad, and it's absolutely central to what you're doing. And a big part of that, because it's all about coding, is teaching people how to do that. How do you foster that culture of innovation and creativity within your business?
So innovation is to me, a really interesting thing. And, since I was very, very young, before I was 10 years old, I remember always trying to work out new ways of doing things and new games to play, new things to make and to entertain me. Over the years, I've seen various managers, talk to their teams, ask for things to be more innovative. Come on, you can do better. I'm looking for something that's more innovative. And in my experience, that advice or that request is not all that helpful. But over the years, I would say I have found 5 ways in which everybody can become more innovative and more creative in the solutions that they provide. And if we just try to remember these things, then we will be more creative. So the first thing that I would say to try and remember is break all the rules. And if you don't break them permanently, at least consider that they'll be broken. And all the things that people know can't be done, just pretend for a moment that that might not be true. And when you can get that into your mind, then you will start to release yourself from the shackles of stuff that, people just think can't be done. So this first one, break all the rules. Second one I would say is smash yourself into new ideas. When we try to expose ourselves to different things, different ways of thinking, different industries, sports, whatever it is, different types of people, we start to see the world through different lenses and understand how different it can be from people's different perspectives. So smash yourselves into new ideas. You will pick things up, you will learn things, and you will increase your ability to innovate. Third thing I would say is to analogize. Try to think, how is this one situation that I'm familiar with or is giving me a problem at the moment? How is this one thing that's giving me a problem? How is it something like something in a completely different domain? And when you can start to think, how a table is like a shredder, then, behind me I have a shredder and it's got some stuff on it. And it's like, okay, you can put things on a table and you can put things on a shredder. And you can jump from one domain to another, the potential solutions, but only can do that when you analogize and think, how is this like something else, which is seemingly quite different. Next thing I would say is, if you want to come up with some innovative solutions, expose yourselves or create for yourself ridiculous constraints. If you had a budget of £100,000 to put on some big event and you're struggling for ideas, and think, well, what would I do if I only had £1,000? And I had to do the same thing and I had to have the same impact. When we do this, when we create a ridiculous constraint, or we could say, what would it be if the Vikings had to do this? Or what would it be if it all had to be in the color blue? Or what would it be if I had to do it in 20 minutes rather than a year? By creating a ridiculous constraint, again, we break the chains that bind us and constrain us and allows us to have new thinking that can come and be part of the solution. And the last thing that I would say is a piece of advice which we can really use all the time, and it's about the word and many people very early on in their careers, they learn that you shouldn't say but, because but means discount everything that you've said so far and now here's the thing that matters. And you can just say and instead, and that sounds more polite and people won't get their hackles up. But actually, at a psychological level, when we use the word and in our minds, something really interesting happens. Our brains start to conceive that these two things can both be true at the same time. When we say but, we think that it can't both be true at the same time. When we say and, it can be true at the same time. And subconsciously, we start to construct the things that would need to be in place in order for those two things to coexist. I want to reduce stock, but I want to satisfy my customers. But means they can't exist at the same time. I want to reduce stock and I want to satisfy my customers. Okay, maybe we get rid of the old stock that isn't selling anymore. That's all, just not required. Maybe we can increase the number of lines, but reduce the depth that we hold. All sorts of things start to come to mind when you get those things in place. So those 5 methods, I would say, everybody can increase their ability to innovate.
5 absolutely fantastic tips there, and some real paradigm shift thinking. So thank you for sharing those, Peter. Absolutely brilliant. You mentioned earlier on about, being struck down unexpectedly with that illness. But I'm sure there have been other pivotal moments on your journey, and you are a serial success story. Can you think of any other pivotal moments where you kind of seized the moment and how they've significantly impacted on your growth journey?
Setbacks are a fact of life. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not taking the easy path, you're taking a hard path, and life is not a bed of roses. Everything does not always go the happy path. Stuff will go wrong, crap will happen, and you just have to find a way through it. On my back wall, just above the shredder, there is this device here, which sort of looks a bit like a metal detector. And that's something that I and some of my students created as a response to an MOD challenge of how to help train serving soldiers how to use a mine detector. They explained the problem to me. We tried to solve it. We put something together. We probably spent 150 or 200 days working on it. And then in the end, we were thwarted by, what are they called? Procurement frameworks. We thought we could find a way through, but we couldn't. And all the way through, that was the thing that we could work on that was the most likely to turn to cash. And I always think it's, the most important thing to be working on is the thing, particularly early on, the thing that's most likely to turn to cash. And that was the thing that was most likely to turn to cash. Eventually, we got to the point where we couldn't do it. We then went to the world's biggest demining charity and engaged with them, and we helped them do some other things. They were very interested in that device, but we helped them do some other things. Always be looking for, even if you get knocked back, where else can this stuff be used? Are you working on the thing that's most likely to turn to cash? Trendily a few years ago, it became like pivot. Well, like pivot isn't a new thing. Pivot is just following the thing that's the most likely to lead to success. And but do it shamelessly. That would be my advice.
You've been a phenomenally successful guy, but you've also been an extremely busy one. How do you maintain a work-life balance?
That is not easy. By nature, I am an obsessive person, and I like to focus on problems for a long time. I don't give up if they're not solved. I just keep going back to them. For years and years, actually, I will keep going back to the same problem. Finding time for your family, because in the end, really, that is the only thing that matters. Everything else is sort of just transitory thing. It comes and it goes. But your family is a permanent marker and, carries on after you've gone. But finding time for them, remembering that, we are going to die one day. Seizing this moment when we are not dead, when we are very much alive, and making sure that we grasp everything that we can from it, remembering we're going to die. It's a bit morbid, but it's part of stoicism, and I very much believe in a sort of stoic view of life.
It keeps you present, right? If you kind of remember that, then it keeps you very, very present. You've seen an awful lot of growth in all the businesses that you've worked in, and it's it is the nirvana for most business owners that I work with. What are the growth strategies that you've seen that have worked well in all the success stories that you've had?
I forget when, probably 1991, Richard Ide gave me a copy of The Goal by Goldratt and Cox. I read that book and it opened my eyes to a different way of thinking about how business works. And I have held the lessons that I learned from that book. And, with it, I did some interesting things in the motor industry. And I have used that with objectivity, and I use it with my current business. It's about the theory of constraints. What is the thing that is stopping you from growing or achieving what it is you want to achieve. And when you address yourself to that thing, then you will go faster, you will grow more, you will achieve more of what you want. And then recognizing that as soon as you've addressed that thing, something else will take its place as the thing that's slowing you down. Because if it didn't, you would instantly accelerate to an infinite speed, and that would be it. But of course it isn't. Just the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. So Theory of Constraints and The Goal by Goldratt and Cox. I urge every business owner, every entrepreneur, every person who's working in a corporation who wants to adopt entrepreneurial thinking, read the book, try to take those things really to heart, really engage and internalize them, and think about what it is, what are the limiting factors that are stopping you achieve, and address them.
That's a great advice. It's a great tip. You mentioned earlier that people are really central to all of the businesses that you've built. Tell me a bit more about that. Can you tell me the importance of building strong relationships and why you think they're so important?
There is an old adage that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, then get a great team around you, and then you will be able to achieve that. Of course, it's true. When you are alone, you are carrying literally the lightest weight that it's possible to carry, and you can change direction and you can accelerate to your maximum speed very, very quickly. But there is a limit to what you can achieve. And if you have your sights set on something more than, just some, like I would call it, a driving instructor or a local plumber or electrician role, where the person is the company and the amount of hours they've got in a day limits the amount of revenue and profit they can make and what they can achieve. If you're wanting to create something more than that, you have to be able to engage with people. And when you engage with people, one of the really important things is actually caring about people, and caring about not just the people who work for you, but the people who are your customers, the people who are your suppliers. There's nobody involved anywhere who should be ripped off. And this idea of win-win, which is one of the values that I bring to my businesses, is finding a way of making something that's good for me, good for like my stakeholders, like my family, my children, my wife, and my extended family, but finding something that's good for the person who I'm talking to or the organization that I'm talking to. And only when we can find those sort of win-win strategies do we accept that and say, this is the way that we're going. When you do that over a long period, eventually people come to know that that's what you're going to do, and they know that they can trust you, and contracts can become shorter and less bound in constraining, killing clauses and weight that just reduces all agility to zero. People win-win, care consistently, even when it hurts. This is the important thing.
You're in a fast-moving industry, Peter. The IT world is moving quickly all of the time. How do you stay up to date with latest trends and technologies to ensure that you're remaining competitive?
I am a nerd, and I can't help it. For me, it's just not like work at all, just finding out what is going on, what's happening. So AI is such a fascinating topic. I took a deep dive into it 6 or 7 years ago. I remained thoroughly engaged in the AI world. Actually, I wrote my first line of code when I was 16 years old, which is now nearly 45 years ago. I'm 60, so 44 years ago. And the things that were important in writing code then, actually they're the same sorts of things that are important now. And the differences are tiny compared to the things which are the same. And when you really understand the fundamentals, your ability to think in different domains of languages and operating systems and everything is just really a tiny, tiny step. So yes, new things are great, and focus on the absolute foundational fundamentals, and they will last you a lifetime.
It's been an extraordinary journey that you've been on. But often when I interview people, they say they would have done things differently. If you could go back and do it all over again, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self, Peter?
My 18-year-old self. It's sort of not to do with work and is to do with work, but I would say, Peter, you're going to go to university in October, and on the first day at the Freshers Disco, you're going to meet a girl called Janet, you'll find her an extraordinary girl. You're going to marry her and you're going to share your life with her, and you're going to have 5 kids and you're going to have a fantastic time. So listen to her, take care of her. She'll take care of you, share everything together. To have a successful career, in my view, you really have to have somebody who you can share the darkest times with and know that they will be there to support you. So this is something that's really, really important.
And you never know when you've got something amazing right there in front of you, right? That's absolutely gold, Peter. What a fantastic way to finish. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing what's been an extraordinary journey.
It was absolutely fantastic to see you again, Mark. And, you look just the same, and great to catch up. Thanks very much for inviting me on today. I really, really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Peter. Folks, if you'd like to come on and share your story in the way that Peter's just done, we'd love to see you. What an extraordinary story it was, by the way. Just comment, apply below. We'll get in contact and we'll schedule an interview with you. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, bye for now.